Alright, so in this video I'll be talking about multiplication and division by complex numbers. In the previous one we looked at addition and subtraction, so it kind of makes sense to get right into multiplication and division. So in complex analysis, and which is different, one thing about it that's different from real analysis is that there's something called a complex conjugate. Now when you multiply ordinary real numbers, there is no complex conjugate, so whenever you multiply or divide, it's kind of very straightforward. But in complex analysis, something called a conjugate. Now, this is nothing more than just, if you have a complex number z and it's equal to a plus bi, which is standard form of complex numbers, the conjugate is written as a minus bi. So essentially, what you do is you keep the real part, you leave it alone, and then you basically switch the sign of the imaginary term. And so for real numbers, of course, there is no imaginary term, so each real number is its own complex conjugate. And also there are two notations here. You can write a complex conjugate with a bar over it, or you can have an asterisk. It means the exact same thing. I prefer to write with a bar, but I know in physics they prefer to use the star notation more often. Anyway, so let's just kind of get right into a few examples. What can we do with them? How exactly do we multiply and divide complex numbers? Well, let's just start with let's just say we have one complex number, 3 minus 4i, and we have a second one, 1 plus 3i. Well, let's say we have a problem like this. Let's say we want to multiply z1 by the conjugate of z2. And so let's just, go right through this step. So our z1 is just 3 minus 4i, and our z2 is going to be 1 plus 3i. But because we're asked to conjugate it, it has to be 1 minus 3i. 1 minus 3i, because here we change the sign. If this had been a minus, we would have changed this to a plus. And so now it becomes just a very straightforward foiling problem. So you have 3 times 1, which is 3. Then you have minus 9i minus 4i plus 12i squared. And so this can just be, remember that I squared is just equal to negative 1. So this becomes 3 minus 13i minus 12. And you can simplify this further, of course. And so you're going to get minus 9, or negative 9, minus 13i. And that's the answer to this problem. So again, all we really did was we changed the sign of this, and we just kind of foiled it out, and that's really all there is to it. It's pretty straightforward once you get a couple examples down. Now, what if we want to divide complex numbers? This process is a little bit different, because the way you do it is you have to, let me just start by writing out the problem. So we have 3 minus 4i divided by 1 plus 3i. And in order to solve this, we have to multiply the whole thing by the complex conjugate of the denominator. So we're going to get 1 plus 3i, 1 minus 3i. And from here, we essentially just multiply the numerator and the denominator. We're kind of just expand this out. So we're going to, on the numerator, we're going to have 3 minus 4i times 1 minus 3i. And then we're going to have 1 plus 3i times 1 minus 3i. Now, the numerator is exactly what we had up here, so we can just write minus 9 minus 13i, because we already did this problem over here. And what about the denominator here? I'm just going to take a quick little shortcut. So you have 1 and 1, and then you have minus 3 plus 3, so the middle term cancels. So you're left with, let's write over here for a second, 1 minus 9i squared. And so that just becomes 1 plus 9, which is 10. And so really that's your answer right here. It's negative 9 minus 13i over 10. And if you want, you can split this up. Sometimes it's preferred to write complex numbers explicitly in terms of a plus bi. So essentially, I'm going to break apart the real and imaginary part. So I'll have negative 9 over 10, and it will be minus 13 over 10i. And again, there are lots of ways you can write that. You could have left it as this. This is okay, but sometimes it's nice to just kind of split it apart so you see the imaginary and the real and the imaginary part. So that pretty much covers everything for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.